Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive into AI.
Always excited to be back.
So today, we're really getting down to the nuts and bolts of how AI systems actually know things.
Yeah.
And then how they use that knowledge to do, all the intelligent things that we hear about all the time.
Exactly.
So it's like knowledge is the fuel and intelligence is the engine.
I like that analogy.
And we've got some really cool material today that I think helps us understand how those two things are, really intertwined and how that actually works in AI.
Absolutely.
So one of the first things that our sources really emphasize is that knowledge is like the foundation. It's the basic information, the data.
Yeah.
Like if you think about a self-driving car needing to know traffic laws.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
That's like foundational knowledge, right?
It is.
But then the intelligence is how to actually apply that in the real world.
Exactly.
So the self-driving car also needs to understand, like physics and data from its sensors.
Right. To be able to actually navigate and make decisions.
To make those decisions, right?
Yeah, based on those
You
laws.
can't just have a book of traffic laws in there.
Exactly. Just knowing the rules isn't enough. You have to be able to apply them.
Right, and it's a two-way street, too, because, you could have this, like, huge pile of facts, but if you can't actually do anything with it,
It's useless.
it's useless.
Yeah.
And our sources really highlight that static knowledge
Right.
needs this kind of adaptive intelligence to keep up with a changing world.
Absolutely. And the opposite is true as well, right? You can have this really sophisticated intelligence,
Right.
but without any underlying knowledge to work with, it's kind of meaningless.
It's like a powerful computer with no software.
Exactly. Like, imagine an AI for medical diagnosis with no medical database.
Oh, right.
Like, it has the potential, but nothing to apply it to.
Yeah, you have to feed it.
Exactly.
So this brings us to like a really key point that I think is super interesting, which is this idea of synergy. When you combine a really rich knowledge base with these smart algorithms that can learn and reason,
That's where the magic happens.
that's where the magic happens. And a perfect example of this is ChatGPT, right?
Absolutely.
It's been trained on this massive amount of language data.
So that's the knowledge.
That's the knowledge.
Right.
And then it uses these transformer models, which is
That's the intelligence.
the intelligence.
Yeah, allowing it to generate all that human-like text.
Right, so it's not just like memorizing the data.
No, it's understanding the patterns and relationships within it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when we talk about knowledge in AI, it's not just like, a giant list of facts in a spreadsheet.
No, it's much more structured and nuanced than that.
Right.
Yeah, there are several key ways that AI actually represents and organizes this knowledge.
Okay, let's get into some of those methods.
Sure. So first we have logic-based systems.
Okay.
Think of these as using strict rules, like in a game of chess.
Okay, so very precise.
Exactly. And within that, you have propositional logic, which deals with simple true or false statements,
Okay.
connected by A and D or not. And then you have first-order logic, which is a bit more complex.
Okay.
It allows for variables and defining relationships between things.
So more flexibility.
Yeah, but still rooted in those logical principles.
Got it. So logic is great for certain things, but it doesn't sound like it handles ambiguity very well.
That's a good point, and that's where structured representations come in.
Okay.
These try to mimic how humans categorize information.
Okay. Interesting.
So you have things like semantic networks, which use nodes and links to show concepts and relationships.
Like a mind map kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah. And then there are frames, which group together related attributes of an object.
Okay.
And then ontologies are kind of like detailed blueprints of domain-defining concepts and hierarchies.
So it's about creating like a shared understanding.
Exactly, which is really important for different AI systems to be able to communicate.
Right, so they're all speaking the same language.
Precisely.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got logic, we've got structure. What else is there?
Well, then we move into the realm of probability, because
Okay.
the real world is full of uncertainty. Right?
Sure.
So we have probabilistic models which help AI deal with that.
Okay. How does that work?
Well, for example, Bayesian networks use these diagrams to show cause and effect and calculate probabilities.
Kind of like predicting the weather based on different factors.
Exactly. And then you have Markov decision processes, which are used when an AI needs to make a sequence of decisions
Okay.
in a dynamic environment, like a robot navigating a busy warehouse.
So situations where you don't have all the answers in a dance.
Right. You have to constantly adapt and learn as you go.
Okay, that's fascinating. And I know a lot of modern AI relies on this idea of distributed representations.
Yes, this is where neural networks really shine.
Right.
And a key concept here is embeddings.
Embeddings.
Yeah, which convert data, like words or images, into these numerical vectors.
Okay.
So it's like turning a word into a secret code where similar words have similar codes.
Interesting. And then how does that actually help the AI, understand things?
Well, it allows them to process and compare information in a much more efficient way.
Okay.
And then you have knowledge graphs, which combine this network structure with embeddings to represent those complex relationships between entities, like connecting people with places and events.
So it's really building this rich tapestry of knowledge.
Exactly. And it's constantly evolving and growing as the AI learns.
Okay, so it sounds like, the takeaway here is that AI needs both this vast amount of information organized in all these different ways, and then the intelligent algorithms to actually use that information.
Absolutely. It's this interplay between knowledge and intelligence that makes AI so powerful.
And the specific way that knowledge is represented really depends on, what the AI is designed to do.
Exactly. Different tasks call for different approaches.
So for our listeners out there, the next time you're interacting with AI in your daily life, think about, what kind of knowledge does it actually need to have? And how do you think that knowledge might be organized for it to actually work?
It's a fun exercise to try and peek under the hood a little bit.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to think about, how these things are actually working.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive for today.
I agree. It's been a great discussion.
Until next time.
See you then.
Bye.